Hello children. Today we are going to study about the plant and animal tissues. Before starting up with the tissues, we should first know what actually is a tissue composed of. So a tissue is a group of cell specialized to carry a particular function and which are similar in their structure. We also know that the cell is the functional and structural unit of life. All living organisms, plants, and animals are made up of tiny microscopic cells. There are two types of organisms based on the number of cells it constitutes. The organisms with just one single cell are called unicellular organism, while the organism which are composed of more than one cells are called as multicellular organisms. We human beings, the plants, the animals, these all are multicellular organisms. So if we talk about tissue, because a tissue is made up of a different group of cells, so we can say that the tissues are only found in multicellular organism. So in today's class we are going to learn about what are the types of tissues that we can come across in our daily life. So basically there are two types of tissues: plant tissues and animal tissues. They look alike but still they have different functions. For example, the plant needs to be specialized in such a way that it can make its own food. So now, when I talk about the levels of organization, we can see that a single cell undergoes repeated divisions to form a tissue. Then the various tissues together form a single organ. Different organs become one single organ system, and different organ system completes an organism. For example, as human beings, we have different types of organs present in our body, which are a part of different organ systems. For example, the lungs in our body are a part of respiratory system because it helps us to observe the oxygen from the inhaled air and also remove the carbon dioxide from the body through exhalation. The heart, it is present in our circulatory system, and we all know the main function of our heart is to pump the blood. So similarly, different organs in our body are organized in such a way that they can continue with their functions. Now, we all know like an organ system is composed of different organs. Similarly, all the cells have different cell organelles present inside them. These organelles are arranged in highly organized manner to perform specific functions, and then these cells together organize to form tissues. Similarly, tissues organize to form organs, and then organs further form the organ systems of our body. Thus, one can say that the bodies of a plant and animals are organized structures, and hence they are called organisms. Now, when we look at this picture, we can see how the single cell zygote goes through repeated division to form an embryo, then the fetus, and then finally the baby is formed inside the mother's womb. Now, coming to the plant tissues. Plant tissues are basically of two types. The first one is meristematic tissues, and the second is the permanent tissues. When we see in this diagram, we can see it is the meristematic tissue. The first thing what we need to learn about meristematic tissue is that these are composed of actively dividing cells. So actively dividing cells means all the cells present in this tissue have the ability to divide themselves and grow in number. Hence, we can say that the only function of meristematic tissues is to produce more cells, leading to the growth of the plant body. Meristematic tissues are found at growing points in a plant, like the tip of the roots, the tip of the stems, the branches, where the growth generally occurs. The growth and the thickness of the stem is also due to the meristematic tissues. Now, we should also learn what are the different characteristics of a meristematic tissue. The first characteristic is that the cells are very small. The second is that the cell walls are thin. So the cell walls in the meristematic tissues are thin so that the division takes place without any hurdle. As long as the cell walls are not soft and thin, the division will not take place successfully. For example, in order to cut anything with the knife, we need the surface to be soft. For example, you can easily cut an apple with the help of your knife, but you cannot cut a stone with the help of your knife. Hence, we should know that the cell walls of the meristematic tissues are thin so that the division takes place. The nuclei are large and conspicuous. Conspicuous means they are very organized, okay, and they have got the nuclear membrane very properly. And so that because the single nuclei is divided and divided till the division takes place. The cells are almost without vacuoles. Vacuoles, we know that these are nothing but the small tiny spaces in the cell which contains minerals or water. And the fifth major characteristic of meristematic tissue is that these are actively dividing cells so that they can divide easily and add new cells to the plant body. Now we come across the permanent tissue, the second most important tissue of the plants. So permanent tissues are right opposite to the meristematic tissues. Like the meristematic tissues are dividing tissues, same like that, the permanent tissues are non-dividing tissues, means they are totally opposite to each other. So the permanent tissues, they form the bulk of the plant body. They do not undergo any kind of division throughout their life. These tissues never ever can divide. The ability to divide in these tissues are absent. So they become specialized and remain same throughout the plant's life. New cells are formed when the meristematic tissues divide, and then these newly formed cells grow, mature, and get differentiated into various types of permanent tissues. So we can say that the permanent tissues are the tissues which are formed out of the meristematic tissues. Permanent tissues do not divide further because they don't have the ability to divide themselves, and the permanent tissue is a group of cell in which growth has either stopped completely or for the time being. The permanent tissues can be divided into two main types. They have been classified into two different types again: simple permanent tissues and then the complex permanent tissues. When I talk about the simple permanent tissues, it provides a support and protection to the plant body, whereas the complex permanent tissues, it conducts nutrients and water. We can say that complex permanent tissues help in transporting the food that is made in the kitchen of the plant, that is the leaves. From the leaves, these tissues carry the food from the leaf to the different parts of the body of the plant. And simple permanent tissues, they are just the supportive tissues of the plant to stand straight, to maintain the balance. So this is the main function of complex tissues and complex permanent and simple permanent tissue. So, this is all about today's class.